Hey y'all, we're back, but something a little different is going to be happening because I have COVID, so I have to be quarantining in one room for a week. Um, and so that's why we're on Zoom doing this. Everything will be the same, the editing and everything will just be the same. We're just not next to each other. So yeah, let's get into it.
All right, let's do it. So we left off with doing numbers 9, 8, and 7. So now for the rest of the way,
Mhm.
because these teams are getting so big and important and amazing, we're going to do only two teams per video. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
so we can really
yes, so
yeah. So we can really devote some time to these top tier teams.
so starting off with number 6, we have Uchenna and Joyce. They won season 7 and 3 legs.
Yes, Uchenna and Joyce, a very iconic team, a team that a lot of people really love a lot, and we do too, obviously, and that's why we have them at number 6.
Yes. They did get one non-elimination, but as we've mentioned before, it was just a positioning leg. That some seasons have done where it's just the top three teams and they're all just racing against each other in not the final leg.
Exactly. So those positioning non-limbs, we tend to not really count them very much as far as evaluating a team because everyone seems to know that there's a non-limb coming anyway, and it kind of affects the way that the race is run. So we don't really put much stock in that particular non-limb that Uchenna and Joyce had.
Yeah. They did mention during the race that they were working on their marriage, but we found it very impressive that they still worked really, really well together.
Yeah, they really had some of the best chemistry and the best relationship of any of the teams in season 7. And it was actually surprising to hear that they were working on their relationship because with all the teams that have been on the race who have really had bad relationships and have fought a lot, Uchenna and Joyce were not anything like those teams. And they really, really got along well together and worked well together.
Um, they won 3 of the last 5 legs, which is very impressive.
Yeah, so they kind of snuck up on the rest of the team, particularly some of the teams that had been dominating the season, which we'll talk about, and ended up really turning it on at the end of the race, and took that momentum all the way to the win.
hmm They were really nice to each other and to other teams, even some teams that didn't respect them as much as they probably should have been respected. They were still really nice to them.
They were. They're just a team that I don't know. Whenever I see them on the screen, I just kind of have a smile on my face, just because they are so pleasant and just kind of sincere with each other and with other teams. And they could still be fun too, And so it's not like they were just a super nice, boring team. But yeah, they just, I don't know, there's something about Uchenna and Joyce. They just have a vibe that I think a lot of people really like.
hmm Rob and Amber, who were past Survivor stars and have now been cast on Amazing Race 7 and Amazing Race 11 All Stars, they really counted out Uchenna and Joyce for the whole race and just focused on their main enemies in that season, which were Ron and Kelly. But Uchenna and Joyce then came back at the end and obviously won.
Yeah, it was really, I kind of like these kind of stories where you have an underdog team that is kind of getting not taken as seriously as they should. And then you had like the two kind of alpha teams, if you will, that were really competing hard against each other. So you had Rob and Amber, the Survivor stars. You had Ron and Kelly, and Ron was a Marine, and Kelly was a pageant winner, and so you had that impressive foursome that was going at it all season, and I think they both just thought one of those teams would win, and they weren't even thinking about any of the other teams. And here, Uchenna and Joyce just kept going and going and working hard, and ended up like coming in and taking away that win from both of those high-powered teams when it all was said and done.
So there were a couple of fast forwards that season, which is pretty much you go to a place and you do one task, and then you get to skip all the other tasks and driving and everything, and just go to the pit stop immediately. But you can only do it once during the whole race. And there was one fast forward in season 7 where you had to shave your head, and Uchenna had already shaved his head in the past, so he didn't really have to worry about that. But Joyce had this like beautiful, gorgeous hair, and she decided to shave it off, and that was just insanely impressive and inspirational to watch.
Right. It's still one of the most iconic moments of Amazing Race history, I think. Just because, yeah, she did have this amazing hair, and it was hard for her to have it shaved off. She really got emotional about it, which is totally understandable. And yet she did it and went through with it. And we know from watching future seasons that there are teams that would not make that choice and did not want to shave their heads, and ended up not succeeding at the roadblock. And so that was really the start of, I think, Uchenna and Joyce's momentum at the end of the race. Once she did that and made that sacrifice, I think anyone who wasn't rooting for them anymore was on board with them.
hmm So in the final leg, they had to go to this cigar shop called like the King of Cigars or something.
Right.
And everybody got there completely fine. And then you just have Robin Amber, who got one of probably the worst taxi drivers, who brought them to Tire King. And it was just probably the funniest moment, one of the funniest moments in all of Amazing Race, and probably the funniest moment in season 7.
Yeah, it's a great moment for someone who was rooting for Uchenna and Joyce, and kind of not rooting for Rob and Amber for various reasons. It was a pretty satisfying ending. So the final leg itself wasn't really all that spectacular. They had some, I think they did a golfing challenge, and then there was a little bit of a swimming challenge. So it really came to a lot of driving around right at the very end and trying to find places. And one of the places they had to find was the Cigar King. And as you mentioned, Rob and Amber ended up with the Tire King. And that was exactly
Yeah.
the wrong king. And it ended up with Uchenna and Joyce being the king and queen.
Yes.
Yeah, nice, huh?
Um, yeah.
Even our dog
Um,
liked it.
when Uchenna and Joyce got out of their taxi at the finish line, Uchenna did not have enough money for the taxi. So literally at the finish line, probably like 20 feet or so from the finish line, they were trying to beg for money from random people. And it was very intense, and I was going insane.
We all were going insane. This was like one of the most frustrating moments of the entire race. And you gotta love Uchenna for feeling being responsible and wanting to make sure the cabbie got paid. On the other hand, it's just like Rob and Amber could be coming at any second, and they're gonna pass you
Yeah.
up like Chris and Alex did to Will and Tara. So it was really a tense moment, but Uchenna ended up getting to pay the cabbie, and they ended up hopping on that finish line mat first anyway. So what a great moment that was.
Yeah. They did beat Rob and Amber, who were a very strong team that season, and probably regarded as some of the best Survivor and Amazing Race players of all time. So that is very impressive for Uchenna and Joyce.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob and Amber were having a great season, and it really kind of at times looked like they were just going to dominate, kind of in a Rachel and Dave way. But then you also had Ron and Kelly, who were also, they were a pretty good team too. And so you really got to give Uchenna and Joyce a lot of credit for beating two teams that were probably some of the best teams that didn't win ever, I think.
Hmm. They are the only winners to ever be brought back for All-Stars. They were brought back in season 11, and it was really fun to watch them race again. And they are just a beloved team by the Amazing Race fandom.
Yeah, they must be again, to have that status of being the only team brought back is really pretty impressive for them. And maybe part of it was Phil thought that they were the only ones who could beat Rob and Amber in All Stars. But again, to
Yeah.
this day, 34 seasons later, 35 seasons later now, almost, they're still the only winners to be brought back. So I think that
Hmm.
says a lot about how people feel about them.
Moving on to number 5,
Number
we have
five.
Rob and Brennan. They won season 1, so the first ever Amazing Race season, and 5 legs.
So going all the way back to number one, and that's pretty impressive of these two guys to win the first race and still end up being our number 5 ranked winning team of all time.
Hmm. They didn't know how the game worked yet because it was the first season and they had never seen anybody play or race the game before. So they didn't really know what they were doing or what they were getting themselves into.
Yeah, and no one else did either, right? And so that's what made the fact that they were so successful so impressive. I mean, it's almost like the first season of Survivor where you just sort of have to say, well, Richard Hatch is one of the best ever because he did it first. And similarly with Rob and Brennan, they did it first too. And you just have to give them a ton of credit for figuring out how this game works.
Definitely. They did win 4 of the last 5 legs, which is just incredible.
Yeah, that actually kind of surprised me when I look back on it now because I thought they were kind of more dominant throughout. But they were always sort of up there, they were always near the top. But they really turned it on at the end and just became clearly the best team in those last several legs.
Yeah, and they were lawyers, which when you think of lawyers, you kind of think of stern, kind of not super like
Friendly.
showy.
Yeah,
Yeah, not really a lot of personality,
right.
but they were really nice and they pet a stray dog and I really loved that.
Yeah, I mean, they were kind of they could be seen as a dude team, right? But they really weren't. I mean, they were just really very decent guys, and they were pretty down to earth as well, even though they were lawyers. But yeah, they pet the stray dog, which I know was your favorite moment.
Yeah.
They also they helped some of the other teams, including Nancy and Emily. So they were just really good guys.
Yeah. They were very calm and collected and
But they
they
were they
were
calm,
very,
collected, and cute, like Quentin and Maddie.
oh, I mean, shout out to Quentin and Maddie, love you
Right?
guys.
All right.
Um, they were very efficient and they worked really well together.
Yeah, they were just one of these teams that were a no drama team as far as themselves. They didn't create any drama. They were just really super efficient, like you said, unflappable, got along great, and just really supported each other. And that those kind of teams have often had a lot of success in the race, and they kind of in that sense remind me a little bit of Megan and Shane, another
Mhm.
top team 10 team of ours who again just were very kind of even keel the whole way right up until the end.
Yes. They were very disgusted by Joe and Bill or Team Guido
Yeah.
when they prevented slash pushed Nancy and Emily at the airport.
Yeah, kind of the only time we really got to see any emotion from Robin Brennan was during that confrontation at the airport. And Joe and Bill season one, Team Guido is different from Team Guido season 11. They weren't quite as fun and charming as they were, as at least as we found them in season 11. And so that was kind of an unfortunate moment. And Robin Brennan really were one of the teams that stood up and try to help other teams who are being bullied a little bit there.
Hmm. They did beat some really strong teams with Frank and Margarita. Joe and Bill, who did not finish the final leg. They were called like back because they were just really far out from the other teams.
Right.
And
They
yeah.
were stuck in Alaska when Robin tried to
Yeah.
cross the finish line.
hmm Kevin and Drew and Nancy and Emily.
Right. Nancy and Emily, who still hold the record as being the highest ranking mother-daughter team in the history of the race. So yeah, they beat
hmm
some really strong teams, and they did it not really knowing how the game was supposed to be played. And you really got to give them a lot of credit. They're sort of like the model, what you'd want the first winner to be. That is kind of what they were, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. A good role model for other teams coming later.
hmm So anyway, sorry about the whole Zoom thing. It's weird, I know. Um,
It kind of feels like
but
we're doing a podcast now, doesn't it?
it does kind of, yeah.
Well,
Um,
you need to get well soon so we can get back to our old ways.
I do, yeah.
And because we got the top four coming all time,
Top four, you guys. We are
final four.
inside the top five,
We
and
are
we are
in the
starting
final
on
four.
number four next time.
Yes. So 4 and 3 next time. You can try to guess who they are. And you can let us know what you think about our picks today and where we're going with the rest of the countdown. So we will see you then.
Yeah, bye guys.
Leave comments.
Yes.
Get better. Bye.